What is to be dreaded by us more than any other doom is not fear, but rather the great disgust; not fear, but rather the great pity, disgust and pity for our human fellows. The morbid are our greatest peril, not the bad men, not the predatory beings. Those born wrong, the miscarried, the broken, they it is, the weakest, who are undermining the vitality of the race, poisoning our trust in life, and putting humanity in question. Every look of them is a sigh, "Would I were something other! I am sick and tired of what I am." In this swamp‐soil of self‐contempt every poisonous weed flourishes, and all so small, so secret, so dishonest, and so sweetly rotten. Here swarm the worms of sensitiveness and resentment. Here the air smells odious with secrecy, with what is not to be acknowledged. Here is woven endlessly the net of the meanest of conspiracies, the conspiracy of those who suffer against those who succeed and are victorious. Here the very aspect of the victorious is hated, as if health, success, strength, pride, and the sense of power were in themselves things vicious, for which one ought eventually to make bitter expiation. Oh, how these people would themselves like to inflict the expiation! How they thirst to be the hangmen! And all the while their duplicity never confesses their hatred to be hatred. Poor Nietzsche's antipathy is itself sickly enough, but we all know what he means, and he expresses well the clash between the two ideals. The carnivorous-minded strong man, the adult male and cannibal, can see nothing but moldiness and morbidness in the saint's gentleness and self‐severity, and regards him with pure loathing. The whole feud revolves essentially upon two pivots. Shall the seen world or the unseen world be our chief sphere of adaptation? And must our means of adaptation in this seen world be aggressiveness or non‐resistance? The debate is serious. In some sense and to some degree both worlds must be acknowledged and taken account of, and in the seen world both aggressiveness and non‐resistance are needful. It is a question of emphasis, of more or less. Is the saint's type or the strong man's type the more ideal? It has often been supposed, and even now, I think, it is supposed by most persons, that there can be one intrinsically ideal type of human character. A certain kind of man, it is imagined, must be the best man absolutely and apart from the utility of his function, apart from economical considerations. The saint's type and the knight's or gentleman's type have always been rival claimants of this absolute ideality, and in the ideal of military religious orders, both types were in a manner blended. According to the empirical philosophy, however, all ideals are matters of relation. It would be absurd, for example, to ask for a definition of the ideal horse, so long as dragging drays and running races, bearing children, and jogging about with tradesmen's packages all remain as indispensable differentiations of equine function. You may take what you call a general all-around animal as a compromise, but he will be inferior to any horse of a more specialized type in some one particular direction. We must not forget this now when, in discussing saintliness, we ask if it be an ideal type of manhood. We must test it by its economical relations. I think that the method which Mr. Spencer uses in his Data of Ethics will help to fix our opinion. Ideality in conduct is altogether a matter of adaptation. A society where all were invariably aggressive would destroy itself by inner friction, and in a society where some are aggressive, others must be non‐resistant, if there is to be any kind of order. This is the present constitution of society, and to the mixture we owe many of our blessings. But the aggressive members of society are always tending to become bullies, robbers, and swindlers, and no one believes that such a state of things as we now live in is the millennium. It is meanwhile quite possible to conceive an imaginary society in which there should be no aggressiveness, but only sympathy and fairness. Any small community of true friends now realizes such a society. Abstractly considered, such a society on a large scale would be the millennium, for every good thing might be realized there with no expense of friction. To such a millennial society the saint would be entirely adapted. His peaceful modes of appeal would be efficacious over his companions, and there would be no one extant to take advantage of his non-resistance. The saint is therefore abstractly a higher type of man than the strong man, because he is adapted to the highest society conceivable, whether that society ever be concretely possible or not. The strong man would immediately tend by his presence to make that society deteriorate. It would become inferior in everything save in a certain kind of bellicose excitement, dear to men as they are now. But if we turn from the abstract question to the actual situation, we find that the individual saint may be well or ill adapted according to particular circumstances. There is, in short, no absoluteness in the excellence of sainthood. It must be confessed that as far as this world goes, anyone who makes an out-and-out saint of himself does so at his peril. If he is not a large enough man, he may appear more insignificant and contemptible for all his saintship than if he had remained a worldling. Footnote: we all know daft saints, and they inspire a queer kind of aversion. But in comparing saints with strong men, we must choose individuals on the same intellectual level. The underwitted strong man, homologous in his sphere with the underwitted saint, is the bully of the slums, the hooligan or rowdy. Surely on this level also the saint preserves a certain superiority. End footnote. Accordingly, religion has seldom been so radically taken in our Western world that the devotee could not mix it with some worldly temper. It has always found good men who could follow most of its impulses, but who stopped short when it came to non-resistance. Christ himself was fierce upon occasion. Cromwell's, Stonewall Jackson's, Gordon's show that Christians can be strong men also. How is success to be absolutely measured when there are so many environments and so many ways of looking at the adaptation? It cannot be measured absolutely. The verdict will vary according to the point of view adopted. From the biological point of view, St. Paul was a failure because he was beheaded. Yet he was magnificently adapted to the larger environment of history, and so far as any saint's example is a leaven of righteousness in the world, and draws it in the direction of more prevalent habits of saintliness, he is a success, no matter what his immediate bad fortune may be. The greatest saints, the spiritual heroes whom everyone acknowledges, the Francises, Bernards, Luthers, Loyolas, Wesleys, Channings, Moody's, Greatrees, the Phillips Brookses, the Agnes Joneses, Margaret Hallahans, and Dora Pattisons, are successes from the outset. They show themselves that there is no question. Everyone perceives their strength and stature. Their sense of mystery in things, their passion, their goodness, irradiate about them and enlarge their outlines while they soften them. They are like pictures with an atmosphere and background, and, placed alongside of them, the strong men of this world and no other seem as dry as sticks, as hard and crude as blocks of stone or brickbats. In a general way, then, and on the whole, our abandonment of theological criteria and our testing of religion by practical common sense and the empirical method leave it in possession of its towering place in history. Economically, the saintly group of qualities is indispensable to the world's welfare. The great saints are immediate successes, the smaller ones are at least